Hello everyone, welcome to this new presentation regarding the tailoring. What is tailoring? Tailoring is finding the right approach for your project. So we are going to go deeper into this notion of tailoring. Let's start with the agenda. So in the agenda today, we are going to see together tailoring principles. What does tailoring mean? Why to tailor? Why tailoring? How to tailor, and one example regarding the approach, how to choose between the predictive, the adaptative, or the hybrid approach, and how to choose between the fixed price contracts and the times and material contracts. Those are examples of tailoring. Let's start with the tailoring principle. So each project is specific. Each project has internal and external factors that are different from other projects. So we cannot use the same methodology, the same approach for all projects we are implementing. So ideally, we have to find the perfect approach given the project we are implementing, given the level of risk, the complexity, the uncertainty, the constraints, the expected outcomes, the deadline, the budget, the resources. So given these parameters, we have to find the perfect approach, the suitable approach for a given project. So tailoring is not only a matter of one person, it's a matter of the team. All the team should be involved in helping to tailor a project. Also, tailoring process is iterative. It means you can define an approach in the beginning and realize during the implementation that you have to adjust this approach. So you have to also anticipate that fact that the approach that you have chosen in the beginning could be adapted more and more during the process of project implementation. So the tailoring activity involve the project team, involve the stakeholders because depending on the influence, the number of stakeholders, but also the power of these stakeholders, the need of these stakeholders, you will tailor differently a project. And depending also on the internal process to the organization, the environment of the organization, for example, the standards in the market, you will not tailor the same way. So, what does tailoring mean? It means adaptation to a project context. So, we were talking about external factors like regulation, like market standards, like physical environment, internal factors, number of resources, complexity, risk, number of stakeholders, budget, deadlines, is also finding the adequate development approach. So, how are we going to implement the project? Is it going to be a predictive way, adaptative way, hybrid? Is defining Tailoring is defining suitable phase and life cycle depending on the type of project that you have. It could be a project to build a house, a mall, a project to build an application, a software, a project to provide some results after a research in the biological area. So depending on the type of project, you will not have the same phases. And the life cycle of the project will be also different. So how to find the suitable phases and the life cycle. Tailoring is also to find the adequate resources, adequate skills, adequate resources availability, adequate resources structure. Tailoring will be also find the perfect, the suitable, the adapted deliverables. So depending on the type of project, the deliverable can be a document, can be a prototype, can be a minimum viable product, Can be a component, can be a product, can be a service, can be a process. So, what will be the adequate deliverable for the project you are implementing? Tailoring also means to be aligned to the requirement because depending on the requirement is for example you work for a company which want to add a new medicine to the market, or if you work for an hospital who is running a project to improve the processes, internal processes efficiency, you will tailor differently. So the tailoring also depends on the scope of the project. So you have to take into account the context, the resources, the approach, the deliverables, the life cycle, and the requirements to define how, specially for this project, how specific for this project you are going to implement the expected outcomes, deliverable benefits, and so on. Going deeper into the definition of the tailoring, we can notice that tailoring is about finding project characteristics like environment, level of risk, stakeholder influence, market standards, organization and culture, regulations, resources, expected deadlines, budget, expected outcomes, and quality. So those are project characteristics. So finding them, those are project parameters. Finding them and defining after the analysis of this parameter, defining the implementation approach, the methodology, the phases, number of phases, type of phases, communication style, the leadership style, the deliverables, the reporting system also, how to define the best reporting system according to the type of project we are implementing, the governance, the performance measurement system, the resource acquisition as well. So why tailoring? So tailoring helps to focus on concern customer needs and optimize the usage of resources. So it's really important. If you have a methodology or an approach that is not suitable to your project, you will over or under use the resources you have on your project. It will not be optimized. Also, tailoring helps to focus and to center the objectives on customer needs. So it's important to remember that projects have different goals, different challenges, different outcomes, different internal and external impacts, and they can't be implemented the same way. Also, if you have similar projects, similar the same goal, but not the same size, the same duration, or the same complexity, you will have to tailor. It's important also to remember that tailoring activity should include project teams member to involve them and to commit them to project objectives. So how to tailor? How to tailor, you have to find the implementation approach, whether it's predictive or hybrid or adaptive. The communication style, how are you going to communicate in the project? Are the team located in the same place? In that case, Are you going to choose most of the time the face to face conversation? Is the team located in different locations? Are you going to find distant communication? How are you going to report on achievements and risks and issues of the, the project? Are you going to put in place meeting minutes, dashboards with KPIs or follow-up reports? Which kind of reporting are you going to choose? How are you going to acquire resources in the project? Are you going to use internal or external resources, permanent or temporary resources? Are you going to select providers? In that case, which kind of contract are you going to use? Fixed prices or times and material? The methodology, agile, waterfalls, order, the leadership style. Are you going to have direct and indirect leadership? Are you going to implement stewardship, other kind of leadership? The governance system. Are you going to define some boards, change boards, steering committees, and so on, follow up meetings? Phases also, which kind of phases will you have in the project? Sampling, for example, are you start by sampling data and making some reports before starting the project? Are you going to start by analyzing the needs? Are you going to start by building your prototype first and then adjust with stakeholders' inputs? So, which kind of deliverable also are you going to choose? Product, document, specification? Which kind of deliverable are you going to use in the project? Also, how are you going to measure the performance? Are you going to assess people individually or teams? Let them assess their own work. How are you going to measure the performance of the project? For example, if you want to choose an implementation approach, here are some questions we should ask ourselves. Are there comparable projects already implemented by the organization? If yes, it will be easy to predict results. So you can use the predictive approach. If no, there is a high level of uncertainty, so you can use adaptive approach. Also, we can ask the second question, that is the scope fixed? Is the requirements and the need of the customer well known, clarified, already listed, or they are changing the requirements often? So, if yes, if the scope is fixed in this case, you can use the predictive approach if the time, cost, and quality are variable. And if the scope is not fixed, you will need to have frequent feedback loops with the users. So the approach can more be iterative or adaptive. We have another example regarding the type of providers agreement that you will choose. If, for example, the scope is fixed, so it's well known, also the costs are fixed, so you have a limited budget, the scope will not move during the implementation. You can agree with a provider on a fixed price contract. But if, for example, you don't know how your cost will vary, but you don't know also how your scope will vary, in that case, You can choose the time and material contract. So tailoring here is defining the best type of provider agreement for your project, depending on the cost variable or the scope variable. If you want to know more about the tailoring notion, please contact us. We will be pleased to provide you some help. See you next time.